Welcome to the Marvel Cinematic University podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Canton III, and this is a mailbag edition of the show pre Thanksgiving. Happy holidays to everybody out there. I am here with the super producer, Jake Christie. Jake, how are you?
I'm doing well. Excited. You got me thinking about cutting into the turkey, some stuffing, some mashed potatoes. You know the works.
Oh man, we're almost here. It's wonderful. Some quick housekeeping notes. Patreon.com/MCUniversityPod, where you could get our bonus content. We are doing Hobbs and Shaw very shortly. And also our pal Cecilia. She did a show based on some of her own research for what she's doing as far as the Spider-Man connection, the Miles Morales connection to Latin culture and how people kind of gravitate to that part of the Spider-Man lore. It's a very interesting conversation. $3 in order for you to get that conversation, and of course $3. Of course, you get into the Discord and have fun conversations as we're having a lot of the things going on in the MCU and outside of the MCU. So, Jake, we got some questions from good folks. Appreciate everybody for sending them in. I will start with this one from Niku. Let's start with a nice simple one. Since 2023 is almost over and nothing else is really coming out, who is the 2023 Marvel MVP? And he lists Hiddleston as Loki, Vellani as Miss Marvel, Bradley Cooper as Rocket, or someone else.
So my actual answer is, assuming that it's not just actors, I think that because of the three theatrical films, only one of them is a success. I would say you almost have to. It has to be James Gunn is the MVP because he's the one thing that is an unmitigated success is on his shoulders. And like the reason why that movie did well is in large part I think because of his involvement. Not to say that like the Marvels falling off in the second weekend is the fault of Nia DaCosta or anything like that. But the thing about Guardians 3, which we discussed when it happened, is that not only like it didn't open super huge, but it lasted, and that is the sign that the movie's good. And so if we're looking at like production, he has the highest wins over replacement, just ahead of Hiddleston. He'd be number 2 for me, but I think James Gunn has to be the answer.
I think that's a very fair point. I went back and forth between Hiddleston and Gunn a lot, just because of the. I mean, you just kind of so you said it there as far as what that movie was this year to folks. I think it's just like it just didn't just capture the MCU vibe. It just captured the movie vibe. Like the way that you close out a trilogy and the way that they did it, it was just so fantastic on so many levels. Hits all the notes emotionally and all of those things. And don't get me wrong, Loki had a wonderful season and a
Mm-hmm.
wonderful close, and Hiddleston
Mm-hmm.
was awesome. Really a tour de force on his part. But I would have to agree with you on the Guardians 3 point, because I just think, considering the way that people have talked about the MCU this year, this was the one thing that everybody was universally pretty strong as far as their positivity was concerned. But shout outs to Iman Vellani. Um
Yeah.
now that she's doing the interview circuit, you're getting just wonderful stuff from her.
Yeah,
Um
I think that like not that box office is not really the most important thing in the world, but I think beyond that number, the fact that she would be higher up in my estimation if it felt like the Marvels was the cultural event that it would need
yeah.
to be. Like I don't care about the numbers at the box office, but the fact of the matter is there are plenty of people who are not seeing it that see most Marvel movies, and so therefore I can't in good conscience say she could be the MVP because like the numbers are on the board on some level.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is what it is as far as that's concerned, and we'll actually get into that topic a
Yeah.
little further down the line here. But the shout out to Niku first for asking that question. Next one is from our pal Michael Springthorpe in the Discord, as he asked, with Pedro Pascal looking like our Reed Richards, will Sue Storm be recast as a young girl or baby?
So that's of course a joke with the fact that he's like the daddy to Baby Yoda and to Ellie on
The Last of
The
Us.
Last of Us, and I just want to add that Benny in the Discord followed up with Namor infatuated with a baby will be a weird twist, but I'm okay with that. To which I responded, the Twilight series tried that, but to questionable levels of success. Am I just reading back a joke I made in the Discord? Yes, of course I am. But he didn't really get it because clearly he doesn't know what happens in the beginning of the fifth Twilight movie. But a grown adult imprints on a baby that happened in a movie. This is a good joke question. I have nothing to say.
Well, I mean, I think the one thing that I could say about it is we can get into the actual news portion of that,
Mm-hmm.
which is apparently, seemingly, all signs are pointing to Pedro Pascal signing on as Reed Richards. Jake, what do you think of this news?
I mean, he's not my ideal in that, like, I can't, like, if I were to be picking the actors that I know that I would most like to see play the part, he's not number one, and he's probably not that high on it because I don't. My idea of Reed Richards is not super in line with how his previous roles. But a
Mhm.
couple things. One, he's just a very charismatic, winning performer, and so like being if you have charisma, you only need to be so right for a part. And two, I think that like I saw some people being like, I was hoping they'd cast an unknown, and I can tell you for certain that they are not going to cast an unknown for this. They
Not
can't.
this time. Nope.
That not after the box office of late. Like they
Nope.
just cannot
You need star
risk.
power.
Yeah, this is not. Sorry, like I don't know if they're going to cast an unknown in a starring role in the next 10 years.
Right. And that's why you hear it pretty much. I mean, they tried to get Emma Stone and the price was too high for Sue Storm. And at this point right now, the odds-on favorite is Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm. And again, like it comes down to what Jake said as far as the box office is concerned. You can't bring these particular characters in who, for my money, are not exactly like they're the first family of Marvel and Marvel Comics, but like in terms of when you talk about in terms of action and fighting and stuff like that, they're not that. It's more of the personalities of the
Yeah,
group that are supposed to get you into that.
and I think I brought up before is consider if someone my age or honestly a little younger, like if you're 20 right now, right? You were born in 2003, gross. But so that means when you were really young, there were two different failed fantastic, like it's not failed, but two Fantastic Four movies that were cheesy, not really that well liked. And then there
Mhm.
was a reboot when you were, like 12 that no one liked. I think Marvel, what I find is that Marvel Comics fans, because they know that how important the Fantastic Four is to comics, overestimate how much of a cultural impact they have. They're not for people who don't read comics, they're not appointment characters.
Yeah,
Like, I can tell you this, I care because you guys care, but like, most people I know, like my older brother, is not going to give a shit. He's not going to be like, well, Fantastic Four, that's so important. With X Men, he would. With Spider Man, with Superman. But I think comic book fans talk about the Fantastic Four as if they are in that tier. And even if they should be, they're just not. The Fantastic Four name is not going to sell a movie by itself.
I think if they were in the situation where 2019 was what 2020 was it's something instead of 2023, then yeah, I think
Uh huh.
you could feel like you could get away with that, but no, they can't. Which is why they've spent so much time trying to get any type of big time star, the Adam Driver types that you hear of, and even going back to Jake Gyllenhaal for a pass around and stuff like that. So I mean, it's one of those situations where you could not in any circumstance come into this with no star power whatsoever. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm thinking that this cast is gonna get announced probably soon because I think the movie is shooting in January or early 2024. So if that's happening, then it seems like this cast is probably locked in. We'll get more into that when that happens. But as far as Pedro is concerned, not my first choice either, but I'm intrigued. It's something
Yeah.
different. So, and I think like to Jake's point, like as far as the charisma is concerned, and just the idea of putting him in a room with certain characters in the MCU, I think I am fascinated by that potential idea. If this goes through, I'm just curious to see how he plays them. So
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes into that.
Because the thing too about him is that, like, I think I saw a lot of people being like, "This is not what he does well," but, like, I kinda also, I have a lot of faith in his ability to do different stuff just because, like, his character on Game of Thrones could not be further. Like, if you saw him just on Game of Thrones and then said he was going to play Joel in The Last of Us, you'd be like, no, he can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, so I am not. I'm currently not interested in counting him out because those two characters are so completely different. I'm like, maybe he does have world's smartest scientist in him. Like, I genuinely don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll definitely see what happens. If there's more news on that front, we'll definitely get to it. But in the meantime, we wait. We wait to see what comes next as far as that's concerned. Next question from our pal Montel, who has a good bunch of these as he always does. Great question asker. First, with Evans out of Marvel for now, the Chris Evans that is, how is Feige going to lure the fourth Hollywood Chris into Marvel? And what role makes the most sense for him? I'm guessing this is Chris Pine.
It is, and the answer is he's not going to. I think the fact that Chris Pine has not been in the MCU is a deliberate choice of it by him. Not that like, he hates the MCU, but his career is just like he
I actually
clearly,
feel like I heard a quote from him, or I saw a
yeah,
quote from him about a couple of days ago saying that he's not doing any of that stuff. So
yeah, he is not interested in playing that game, and good for him. I think if you go like resume by resume in terms of like quality of movie, he probably has the best batting average of all the Chris's, and for good reason because he doesn't do a lot of dumb shit.
yeah, and then yeah, I feel him, and I mean we kind of heard another quote from him today as far as Dungeons and Dragons was concerned, seeming like he has an inkling that there will be a sequel to that, which I gotta say, good movie,
I love
pretty
that
good
movie.
movie.
I love that movie. That movie, I'm one of its biggest defenders. But yeah, I want to retract. I said he doesn't do dumb shit. I don't want to imply that being in the MCU was dumb shit. But I think the thing is,
Hmm.
at least at this moment, if I was the agent of someone who's already been a leading man of big films, I would tell them not to go in the MCU because nothing good could happen of it. You know what I mean? Like Pedro Pascal actually is like probably like the most famous person who would do it because he doesn't have like film success. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the problem is anyone more famous than him, it's not like how much is Adam Driver's career really going to be helped if he's like
Right,
has a photo deal?
there's nothing much that you can gain at this
Yeah,
point from doing that, especially with
yeah,
seemingly the way that seems like all of Hollywood is launching a full onward
yeah,
assault on the Marvel franchise, but we'll
yeah.
see what happens there. All right, so Montel asked a two-part question here. Which character has taken the biggest ass whooping over the course of the MCU, each physical and mental? And conversely, which characters handed out the most or biggest physically and mentally ass whooping? So one given and one taken. Well, two characters, I should say,
I
physical and
mean,
mental.
I feel like the obvious answer for most given is the Hulk because the man. I mean, he's the Hulk. Um, and then in terms of like gotten. I feel like Tony Stark, just in terms of time, the amount of times they cut to a shot of him inside his helmet where he's got a bloody nose. Like I feel like at once a movie that happens, he's always getting the shit kicked out of him. And so, like, maybe it's just that Robert Downey Jr. is not as like beefy as Chris Evans, so he wears it worse. But those are my answers. They're kind of obvious, but
So, like in terms of giving physically and mentally, giving, I think there's a chance you can make the argument Thanos. You can make Thanos or Hulk would be my two choices. I'll lean slightly Thanos just because when Thanos went up against the Hulk, he made the Hulk quit. Like it's just like he packed them up. So I'll say Thanos there. Who giving mentally? That's interesting. You could make the argument Wanda, but then you could also make the argument that she's taken the most
I mean,
mentally.
I would say that both those are true. In terms of mental, she's a
Yeah.
basket case.
Yeah, given taken, yeah, I feel like yeah, Wanda, I would go with her. And as far as physical beatings, I know you mentioned Tony, and Tony's a good one. I gotta say, Cap has taken some beatings
Yeah,
in some of these films. Like
yeah,
a Winter Soldier, Bucky got him pretty good. Civil War, he's got
mm,
pretty good there. And Infinity War, Thanos took him
yeah,
out, and then he was kind of struggling with a couple of dudes
mhm,
too. So eh, I would lean more towards what you're
yeah.
thinking. but I'll go with Cap just to be different.
I was also just thinking too, Loki's also definitely gotten some beatings. I
Oh
mean, he got Hulk
yeah, the
smashed, he
whole.
got choked out,
Oh
um,
my
he was
gosh.
falling for 30 minutes, he's
Oh, and to be fair, like just because of the way that Taskmaster beat the shit out of
Mhm,
Natasha at the
mhm,
beginning of beginning of Black Widow, like
mhm,
I'll give her honorable mention because
yeah,
my goodness gracious, she took the beats there.
mhm,
All right, so we have a question from Dr. Darius Jones at
mhm,
Darius Jones 06. I think the Marvels set the tone for what's coming with Young Avengers and X-Men. Who else do we think will be a part of the Young Avengers? Also, he says, I think Loki will come back in Avengers Secret Wars. On that last point, I think you are correct,
yes,
sir.
I think
And
that
then
that's
as
correct.
and I think as far as the who else will be a part of the Young Avengers, I mean, we can list them. We can list who we got right now. We got Ms. Marvel.
Mhm,
We got Kate Bishop's Hawkeye. I'm
mhm,
guessing we're gonna get to Cassie
mhm,
Lang.
mhm.
And who else you got on the team?
I mean, Wanda's 2 sons, I
Yes.
suppose if they're real in some way. That I'm not that enthusiastic about just because we haven't seen them as, like, full-fledged characters, but I know that they're part of the Young Avengers technically. Yeah,
Right. I mean, I think that we will see in the Agatha series. I think we will learn a little bit more about the older versions of them.
okay,
So
yeah. And then is Riri Williams, she's good, she's around, right?
yeah, Riri Williams, Ironheart. I think there's a chance she joins that crew. It's always possible. They have a bunch of those. Trying to think who else. Isaiah Bradley's grandson. It's possible that they can bring him back at some point. We'll see if he's in brand new world,
Mhm,
a brave new world, I should say.
mhm,
But yes, I'm curious to see who beyond that. I think that's kind of fits the list, unless you want
yeah,
to add a future version of Kang in Iron Lad.
yeah,
That's another potential one if they decided to go that route. So
mhm,
if they wanted to later tie in all of those
mhm,
stories with what's happening there. So those are the few that I would go with as far as
yeah,
who that team list is concerned. And man, I'll say it again real quick. The Loki reunion with Thor is what I'm waiting for.
mhm,
It's just gonna be awesome. I can't
mhm,
wait for it. I'm very excited for it. And so back to Montel
yep,
he has another one of these
mhm,
questions. What's the Secret Wars plot that has Rhodey meeting his variant? And he puts a video with Freddie Gibbs and Don Cheadle. For some reason, Montel thinks that these two look alike. It really is the perfect it be your own people
mm,
in this situation. And the my only response to this question is, I mean, I don't know if you looked at Terrence Howard's Instagram last week, but he put a little photo of a drawn photo, an artist's photo of
mm,
him dressed up as War Machine, and it
mhm.
seemed like he it seemed like he might be interested in taking a stab at coming back.
I'm in favor of basically any cameo in Secret Wars, but if I'm like if I'm a producer on that movie, I'm not letting him within 10,000 feet of the set. He's just not. Sorry.
I know we went. I know we went on one of the most ridiculous bits in show history a couple of weeks ago on that
Hmm.
idea,
Hmm.
but oh boy,
Can you
so
just imagine, like, we talked about before, Marvel, like, famously has, at least it seems like, on paper, like, those some of, like, the least contentious sets for big blockbusters, and the Terrence Howard comes on, damn well the first thing he's gonna do is go to the first producer he sees and try to relitigate his salary for Iron Man 2.
I can't wait.
The thing about Terrence Howard is, there's some people that, like, so I feel like celebrities, whenever they start talking in a certain way, people are like, man, they're being so real. And maybe I'm just cynical, but I'm like, no, 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 they're unstable. Like he's not a well guy. I can't diagnose him, but you see him like going on like a long speech about how 1 times 1 doesn't equal 1, and but he's saying like super serious. It's like, okay. The fact that this is like his hobby horse for life means that he's
Yeah.
been told a million times he's wrong, which leads me to believe he's delusional.
Oh my god. I don't see it, but it would be something else. I
Mhm.
mean, you could if there was any time to do the
Yes, of
most
course.
ridiculous thing, that is the one time that you could do it. So if it ever did happen, we would all
Yeah.
freak out in the theater.
Yes, I'll be in favor of it, and it'll be very funny if it happens, and you can tell that it was shot in such a way that he doesn't share the frame with anyone else because they shot him by himself.
Pretty much, pretty much. Logan Stanley at L Scribe,
Hmm.
good guy, fan of the
Yeah.
show. Appreciate you, buddy.
Hmm.
Big picture question: given the recent report in Variety and now the reshuffling from Marvel, only Deadpool 3 in 2024, Avengers 5 new director. How do you feel about the future of the MCU moving forward? Go ahead, Jake.
Bad. I feel pretty bad about it. I feel that I mean, like, I don't think it's dead insofar as like there will still be money to be made off these things, especially as like if I thought that there was a alternative type of movie that was going to start making hundreds of millions of dollars, I feel differently. But like, I think that these movies not doing so well is more of a symptom of all movies not doing well than anything
Hmm.
else, and because people obviously got tired of it in certain ways. In terms of like the quality of it, I'm not that worried because I generally like most of the stuff they put out. Um, so like those are two separate questions. In terms of like the success and how much it's going to keep doing stuff, I assume there's going to be less content coming out, which is bad for me because I can, and the main thing is don't want there to be less content because I want to keep doing the show as often as possible, to be honest. But one, we'll find stuff to do, and two, I think that they do need to shut it off, like the faucet off a little bit, regroup, and like I think that this is Hollywood like has a very short memory, and so like two successes and this whole narrative will change. So like I simultaneously think that like the rumors of Marvel's demise are greatly exaggerated, just because what it would require for this apparatus to stop is like a lot more than just a couple failures.
Hmm.
One thing, it would require Disney to find another franchise to make money with. But also I think that they're in serious trouble of like the thing you don't want to have happen is for them to have a million failures in a row and then them go out and like make a drastic decision like fire Kevin Feige and do something like really dumb. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I'm more worried about it than I have been previously. But also, they don't need me to worry about them. They're a multi-billion-dollar corporation.
Right. I mean, in terms of worry, I think more so than anything, as far as direction is concerned, yeah, you have to at least begin to question it to a degree. However, I will say that a lot of the reports that have come out, specifically the Variety one over the last couple of weeks, do feel like catching the tail end of everything that they've seemed to have adjusted to, or at least have been adjusting in the past 6 months. We could talk about the TV division stuff. That seems like this is some stuff that I don't feel like this stuff just happened. I feel like this was months of reporting that has come out. So you also have to consider that when it comes to the timeline as far as that's concerned. So when I try and think about it and put in perspective, I think that they realized what the situation was. And I mean, you could not like Bob Iger, but he was right in terms of how the content had become diluted, and it seems like they're now trying to correct the situation. It says a lot that they shot the Cap movie and just thought that it wasn't up to snuff. We're gonna just go back and do it again. Which, by the way, if if they need to do that, that kind of shows, like, more so than anything. Sure, you could be alarmed, but also like, hey, they're starting to recognize that some of these things have problems.
Yeah.
So that's the first that's the first step of beginning to what's the first step to digging out of a hole?
Hmm.
Stop digging. And it seems
Exactly.
like it seems like they're stopping that digging.
Yeah, and the thing I've always said about reshoots, and I think you and I are similar with this, like
Mhm.
I would much rather have a movie that has a bunch of reshoots than have a movie that doesn't work that they didn't bother to reshoot. You know, like if they don't think it works, I'd rather them take a year and get it to work as much as they can. And I really do think that this has been my hobby horse forever, but I think just based on reading things Bob Iger said, I think that there is going to be a push to make these things cheaper because it's just like I know
And there should
Rod,
be.
friend of the show, pointed out. he was pointing out that like the knives are out from Marvel, which is true, but that there were headlines back to back weeks where the Marvels made like $2 million more than the new Hunger Games movie, and the headline about the Marvels was that was a disaster, and the headline about Hunger Games was a little bit of a disappointment, but still good. And I understand that that is a lot of anti-Marvel bias, but it is also that the Marvels cost like $250 million, and the new Hunger Games movie cost $100 million, and so I think that there's just I think that there is, based on things Bob Iger said, there is an acknowledgement that at a certain level, if you need to have the best year in studio history, like they did in 2019, in order to make a profit, that probably is not a profitable way to go. And so I hope that they do that, because also, in my opinion, I think the idea of doing Marvel movies with smaller budgets means that there are more interesting ideas in them, in my opinion. Like, I think that it's like, because I know what it's like when Marvel can spend all the money on the craziest CGI effects of
Yeah.
people floating in the sky. I know what that looks like. Let's see what happens if, maybe they need to tell some stories that are a little less cosmic.
Right. We'll see what. And I know they started this new brand name, the Marvel Spotlight, where they're doing more street oriented stories. They put Echo under this brand. We'll see what Echo is like. Not too far away from that, and we'll see what some of the stuff that they do decide to do. I think Daredevil's gonna be. I mean, it's gonna be interesting now that they decided to redo almost nearly that entire production. So that's another example. Maybe they need to do some changes. The stuff you heard about Blade and that whole mess, and trying to scale that budget down. That's another thing that you have to consider as these things go through changes. And it seems like, at least to me, it seems like not necessarily headed in the right direction, because right now we don't really know what that's gonna be. I think 2024 is gonna be an interesting year because they give us smaller stuff and then just the one movie, which is a big movie, but it's just the one movie. So that's interesting in itself. So 2024 will be an interesting year. But I mean, overall, to kind of bring it back to answering the question, am I concerned? Yes. Do I think it's over? No, because I think there's just so much context to these things. And what I am interested in now is it does give an opportunity, if David Zaslav doesn't try and sell everything off. It does give an opportunity for DCU to kind of make a big name for themselves with the Superman movie. If James
Yeah.
Gunn is on the ball and he's writing this thing, he's directing this
Hmm.
thing, he's handling this thing, I'm interested to see what they got cooking with that. Because if they
Yeah.
if they could cook something up, then goodness gracious, we might actually have some competition, which I would actually personally like to see,
Yes.
because competition will make the other studio raise their game.
Yes, and also because I'm also going to see all the DC stuff. Like, the reason that this is Marvel Cinematic University is because the Marvel Cinematic Universe was the one worth covering in a podcast. I know that you grew up reading comics. I have no allegiance towards either of these companies. I like the Marvel movies because they're better generally now. But like, I want as many good movies in these genres as possible, and so yeah, I don't know if you just saw. Did you see today the announcement that just happened with just came across the wire with DC Studios? I don't know if it's. I saw it on the Discord. I don't know if it's. I assume
Wait,
it's accurate. Of that they
wait.
just cast. Yeah, that Nicholas Holt just got cast as Lex Luthor.
Oh shit! Yes, yes, yes! I did not see that. That's great.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was excited about this movie anyway, but okay, I'm even more
Hmm.
intrigued now. Oh my
Hmm.
goodness. Oh boy. All right,
Hmm.
I could really think about what they're doing with this movie. It's gonna be
Hmm.
very very fascinating.
And I'm
Oh my.
happy for him. He finally he's tested for like every role in Hollywood, and he finally got
I
another
think
good one.
he tested for Clark in this too.
He
So
also
like
tested
back
for the Batman, I know as well.
yeah,
He tested for the Batman, he was number 2, and he was supposed to be a major role in Mission Impossible, but something went wrong or something, I forget what it was, and he couldn't do it. So he needs a win.
good for him, man. Oh no, that's awesome. All right, so I'm now even more in, and I was already in.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean, to your point, as far as DC, like for me, listen, with this DCEU, I feel like we've covered this before, but I personally like and have enjoyed DC Comics. Like
Mhm.
Batman is one of my favorite characters. Uh you bring in Superman, the Justice League, that whole thing,
Mhm.
and you just want to see them tell good stories.
Mhm.
And That's all you want out of those things. At the end of the day, it's not a who's better than who or whatever. If you tell good stories, then you will have my money. So
Yeah.
that's really where it comes down to. A quick question from Darren, and it's a fair one at DJon90. Where does Secret Invasion fit in with the Marvels? Doesn't really fit in
Mhm.
anywhere besides a couple of scrolls.
And I think that that is completely fine. I think a lot the thing the a tweet I see a lot is people posting the photo of like the whatever his name was in the Eternals thing coming out of the earth. I forget what his name was. I haven't seen the movie in a bit. But people are like this happened and like five
Oh,
movies
Tiamat.
ago.
Yeah,
And they
Tiamat. Yeah.
still don't reference it, right? And the thing my opinion on that is if you do something that is widely considered not good, like Eternals, I know that there are Eternals with Defenders, and I'm not going to take that away from you. But if you do something that's not good, I would rather them move on and pretend it didn't happen than like try to like if you can come up with a good idea, fine. But with Secret Invasion, it didn't work. No one liked it. Nothing in that happened was really that important. I'm so glad that there was barely even passing mention because people shouldn't have to watch Secret Invasion to understand this shit because it's bad. I don't want people to have to watch bad stuff because then that does become homework.
If as far as the Eternals portion of this is concerned, just go back to the pod that I did with Hunter on the ghost
Right.
plot lines, and you'll get a decent explanation of what we will see with the Tiamat situation. So you got that, and listen, I don't think it's I think it's not that big of a deal. It is funny that Nick Fury looks like he's infinitely having more fun in
Mm-hmm.
this movie than he was in Secret Invasion. So like I think that's just cool to me. And at the
He
end of
got
the
the
day,
Bengay. You got the Bengay on.
he got the big. Oh my gosh, that's so good. Oh man, that Aman Vellani story that she gave when I can't remember what show she was
It
on,
was on
but
Seth Meyers.
Seth Meyers. But man, that was so awesome.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so cool. All right, so we also have Cole Gerard 44, David Oy. Wait, how you
Oh,
pronounce his name?
Yellowo.
Oyelowo as Kang. What do you
I
think?
mean, um, fine. I think he's a fine actor. He's really good in Selma. Um, I'm not gonna say Martin Luther King. That's disrespectful. But how could you not? How could you not?
No, after you said it for
I
me.
don't know if your mind went there, but that's where my mind went.
I don't think I didn't, and I'm glad you did.
Well, yeah, but that's his one. He's been in a bunch of stuff, but I think that that's the one that like I don't know. I'd see it. He's not number one on my list, but he's definitely someone I'd be excited if he did it.
right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Yeah, he's not on my list either. I feel comfortable with who I have, and we'll see what Marvel decides to do with
He
that
just always comes off
situation.
as more. He's
Yeah,
and I mean this in a good way. He's just a very sensitive actor to me. He's not someone I think of as imposing. Um,
right. Like there's not the yeah, I guess there's an empathetic nature to his
yeah,
personality that you can almost kind of feel every time that he's on
yeah,
screen.
and one thing I think that that makes him a good actor in a lot of what he does.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, he's not. But I mean, I'm sure he has it in him. He's classically trained, etc., etc. So once again, not someone I'd be mad at if they announced it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And uh Dr. Darius Jones has another question.
Hmm.
Just had a thought, but why wasn't the Shang-Chi post-credit scene connected to the Marvels? And I will say, I don't know if it really needed to be honest, at that time. I mean, you had Captain Marvel in the post-credit, but I think, I mean, part of that was a favor because she's pals with the director.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that whatever that plot line as far as the 10 rings are concerned is, it may have something to do with the future. It may
Yeah.
have something to do with just the Shang-Chi
Mm.
universe. We don't know for sure.
Yeah.
So that is something that I guess whenever Shang-Chi 2 comes out,
Hmm.
and we'll see what happens. That movie is happening.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that at some point.
And I think the thing too is that like it wasn't necessary for the plot to go out, and like I think that that would be I think the only way if you try to include it, it would feel like one of the times in Marvel movies when they're at their worst, where it feels like it stops flat to tell half a story, right? Because like whatever the story is with his rings and the beacon, whatever they sent out, that would not be resolved in the Marvels. And so in that case, I don't want like half of an up. I don't want like a 5 minute update on that. You know what I mean? Like if it's not going to actually be fully involved,
Yeah,
don't give me a scene where it's 5 minutes where the movie stops to a halt to talk to Shang-Chi for 3 seconds, and then you know what I mean? Because Marvel movies can do that. In fact, I would say that like when I always try to think about like what the film Twitter guy who hates Marvel movies for a lot of understandable reasons caricatures a Marvel movie as, and that is their caricature of it. That's like in the Marvels, they spend 5 minutes updating you on the Ten Rings, and
yeah, you
like
don't need that.
we don't need it, especially because like guess what? When Shang-Chi 2 happens and they bring it back up again, you'll remember it and you'll remember the post-credit scene, and you're not gonna be no one's gonna complain that they didn't mention it, you know. I think that like I think people really oversell how much interconnectedness there was in all these individual movies before like Infinity War, specifically in the individual character movies. Like there's not much like Captain America Winter Soldier doesn't have any moments where they stop to update a plot from Iron Man 3, you know? And so I don't need it unless it's actually going to pay off.
Yes, and I wholeheartedly agree with you on that fact. We also have a question from Theo at underscore line the adore. What's it called when you're sexually attracted to an artificial, intelligent, transparent clock? My
So
answer is less humble Tej on Twitter. That's what you got.
I quote tweeted this already, and I said something to bring up in therapy. Yeah, man. I mean, whatever floats your boat. I'm not gonna criticize, you know. But yeah, um, yeah. If you're attracted to a clock, I just hope she has a pretty face. But it's a little clock humor for you. Pretty. um, so stupid. What the? What are we doing? I can't believe
Oh
a
god.
doctor asked us questions. Why does someone with a doctorate listen to the show?
Oh man. Well, I mean, listen. I love that I appreciate our guests for helping us pull in new listeners from all around, and
hundred
appreciate
percent. Yes,
anybody
very much so.
who's coming through.
Yes,
Thank you for joining us
yes.
as
I
always.
I don't mean to besmirch Doctor Jones, but I mean, wow, it makes it just.
I mean, you sounded
He,
like when Rod was talking about why did Anthony Mays do shows
yeah,
with us?
exactly, exactly, exactly.
That's great. That's great. I appreciate everybody, and we appreciate everybody
Yes.
for asking your questions, and we will do this again soon. But there is a lightning round. I have some questions for Jake.
Alrighty.
Uh, Jake, firstly, so all this big picture Marvel
Mm-hmm.
stuff, what's happening, what are they gonna do? I don't know. But what if Marvel Studios gave you the keys to running the whole entire universe? What would be your next year to two, if you'd like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
of programming, and what's the one passion project that you're trying to push through?
Okay, so the first thing I would do is nothing with programming, and this is going to make a lot of people upset, but I mean it. I would say that the window for going to theaters to Disney Plus would be 6 months. I know that pisses people off, but I think that it just why do these movies fall off a cliff? Because if you don't see them in the first weekend, you might as well see them in a month, right? So that would be for the first thing I did. The second thing I did is I would fast track a Young Avengers project just because Iman Vellani has so much heat, and I think that if you get these young actors in front of the camera fastest, um, I think that's best for everyone. And my passion project, and I'd also probably do another season of She-Hulk. That actually is my passion project, just because how much that's going to cost. Like, I mean, woof. But yeah, I think that, and then probably, I don't know, since I don't have a wide comic base, I would probably do, you know, I don't know what the script is for Thunderbolts, but I would retool it to make it more of a Yelena focused movie. Not just because I love Florence Pugh, but because I think that they're kind of overestimating how much people give a shit about the other characters in that movie. No disrespect to any of them, but
Hmm.
um, and yeah, I would do that, and I would probably by the end of next year, I would make it clear what the situation is with the world that Monica Rambeau's in. Like, I would kind of make the pieces clear of what worlds we're dealing
Mm,
with. Would
I
be
agree.
something I would do because I think the longer you keep it up in the air, people
I was
eventually will
thinking
start
about
rolling
that
their
too. Yeah.
eyes.
I agree. I agree. I like that. The Thunderbolts point that you mentioned, we got confirmation thanks to Robert Kirkman the other day when he was talking about Invincible, saying that Stephen Yeun was trying on his costume for Sentry, so
Mhm.
one of the biggest baddest powerful characters in the Marvel universe, and he's coming to Thunderbolt. So that's an interest. That is a outside. I will tell you, for that character, that is a very outside the box choice in terms of Stephen Yu. So I'm excited to see what he's got for this role. So that should be very fascinating. And all right, so this other question that I have for you, Jake, as
Hmm.
far as the box office is concerned
Hmm.
with the Marvels and the Hunger Games, a movie
Yeah.
that you saw,
Hmm.
um, you stated it a while back. You said that this box office situation would be a
Hmm.
tough one for the Marvels, and
Hmm.
it has been.
Yeah.
What do you think of as you see this playing out now? How do you feel?
So my specific prediction was that I thought the Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds the Snakes was going to outgross the Marvels. Now, after the weekend the Marvels had, I'm like, well, fuck, I'm in the clear. I'm definitely going to. And then the Ballad of Songbirds the Snakes underperformed a little bit. So it was by like $2 million. So it depends on the legs that the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes have. It's still up in the air. I think what that shows me is that like I said, the box office is just down across the board, which is, as someone who loves movies, bad, and I hate it. Please support movies in the theaters if you're able to, and by if you're able to, I mean if there's not like a literal reason you can't go. And especially if it's a movie you like, and I think especially like the Hunger Games, like the scenes in the arena were shot in IMAX. It has like incredible production design. Like they built all the shit in like middle of nowhere Poland. And so things like that I really like seeing in the theaters. So the way I feel about it is that I think I'm probably still going to end up being right by a little bit, but not by the widest margin I thought. Because the first part of my prediction was correct, that the Marvels was going to underwhelm. But I thought that two generations of Hunger Games fans would really boost the numbers of this. But it seems like the Zoomers don't go to the movies for anything. They just
Mhm.
watch things on TikTok. I know I'm sounding like an old man. I hope you appreciate that.
Yes, I
Um,
do.
but yeah, I don't. I'm really I kind
Rub
of
it
have like a
off on you, Jake.
when I saw the box office numbers, I kind of had a crisis of like, shit, if this book that clearly is popular with people from ages like 15 to 25 can't get into the theaters, then maybe theatrical movie making is just done. Like, if I just don't know how do you get what movies are teens going to see if they're not going to see that one? I just don't know.
It's interesting because I think a lot of the conversation online, especially about going to the movies these days, is like, hey, it's very expensive. If you're trying to take, especially if you're trying to go with your family to the movies, and that is totally understandable. Totally get that. That's an important part of how just all of this and movie theaters are trying to make their money back, especially after what happened in the pandemic. Because a lot of, oh boy, when you talk about like business getting
Yeah.
destroyed, that
Yeah.
that's really where it is. And obviously
Yeah.
the strike for right reasons
Mhm.
also changed things as well. So
But
I
the thing
just
I will say about the
yeah,
prices,
go
just
ahead.
because I think that that's part of it, but I think the problem is the prices compared to like 2019 have
Hmm.
not gone up enough to explain that it's like 63% down. Like I can't. Everyone like say, "Oh, it's so expensive." Like, yes, I agree, but it was expensive to go to movies in 2018. You know
No,
what I
I
mean?
think streaming.
Something changed.
So okay, so I think this goes back to something that you said all the way
Yeah.
back in 2019/2020 when we talked about streaming, what is happening with streaming being the thing, and you had mentioned that streaming is something that could potentially destroy the business, and we are
Yeah.
seeing a slow
Yeah.
death of what movie theaters are.
And it's not, and the reason I say destroy the business because a lot of people are like, well, isn't it if stuff is still going to be on streaming? But I think what you and I've talked about is that, and all these streamers raising their prices, raising their prices, raising their prices. It's almost as if they can't make as much money streaming. Because think about it, if you pay 19.99, which is a lot for a streamer, you pay 19.99 for the streamer, right? You're
Hmm.
paying that for everything they have. So if they release a new movie that costs like $200 million, they need that many new subscribers in order to get the same amount of money as they
Yeah,
would. But if you go see a new movie in theaters, you have to pay $20 anyway. So like
yeah.
the money, the thing is, there is just, if you like big blockbuster filmmaking financially simply cannot be supported by streamers. There is not enough money possible to be made. So that's why I think people, I understand convenience is great or whatever, but it's like fine. But unfortunately, then every movie you get is gonna look like a Netflix rom com because there's not gonna be enough. Like, and you like people like some of the Netflix rom-coms, but they don't look good. They don't have good production value. They don't have, like, and so this is why I'm so passionate about this, because it's like I don't want this shit to go away. And I know it's a little annoying to go to theaters, but like there's just not the money in streaming. There just isn't.
Listen, I spent a good portion of my 20s and early portion of my 30s in a movie theater. And that experience you can't replace.
No.
As far as this podcast is concerned, I remember what Infinity War was. I
Hmm.
remember what Endgame was. You can't replace that by watching something at home. It
No.
just doesn't. I mean, if you went to No Way Home in the theater, you're
Hmm.
not getting that energy. You're not
Hmm.
getting any of that. So I think that while it is tough, and I certainly understand
Yeah.
people's position, it's not easy,
Mm.
especially in, like, when my kids get older,
Yeah.
taking them to the movies is
Hmm.
gonna be, it's gonna
Yeah.
be a real thing. But however,
But the
to
people who are not going to the movies anymore are not people your age. Just the
R
thing.
exactly, like, you can't grab, and maybe you can make the argument,
Hmm.
and I feel like this is an argument that I will make, is that I do feel like while there are original stories,
Hmm.
I do feel like because of the propensity to just
Hmm.
remake. I saw a potentially a remake of the Assassins movie with Sylvester Stallone and Antonio Banderas. It's like, why are we remaking that? I saw the Bourne thing. You don't need to go back to Bourne. How many
No.
movies of Bourne? Let's make new shit. Give
Yeah.
people new opportunities. And that really is how you get people back. But I don't
Yeah.
think anybody no executive seems to understand that, and nobody really understands that who runs these studios, is that you need original ideas.
Because the thing is, if the new Bourne movie fails, you can justify it and you won't get fired. But if you
Right.
spend money on an original idea and it doesn't work, you might get fired. Which is, of course, that's just the way Hollywood used to be. It used to be like, yeah, you stick your neck out. And yeah, I think that like what the Barbenheimer phenomenon, which can't really be replicated, I think shows is that you need things that are like culturally relevant, that feel like they're
Hmm.
speaking to a moment. And I think that that's something the MCU should definitely try to recapture, is to try to like. That's why I think that's why I said like just do a Young Avengers thing where it's like I would worry significantly more about making the next movie successful than making the next 10 movies successful. Like if the larger problem the MCU has had is that they've been more concerned with making the 10 movies from now successful than the
Yeah,
one right in
making the
front of them.
tentacles all make sense as opposed to
Yeah,
concentrating on one
and
thing at a time.
so I think that there's that. Like, I mean, the fact of the matter is, like, when WandaVision blew up and everyone wanted an Agatha spinoff, why the fuck is it taking 3 years to make that happen? Like, that is just, in my opinion, bad business.
You should be capitalizing on that moment.
And so I think things like that are what, and I think that goes with movies where you have, it feels like so many things are just not responding to the moment and are not getting people interested and are not, yeah, it feels like more than ever, studio executives have such a low opinion of their audience. And I think people can be dumb, but I think people really, really have a sixth sense of when they're being pandered to. Like people really can tell when they're being pandered to. And even with like the Marvel's advertising, the last week of advertising where they tried to like fold everything into Infinity or whatever, it's like everyone knows that that's just pandering. Like,
Right.
stop it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, sometimes it's better to just be honest.
Yeah.
It really is. Being honest and genuine in all phases of life do matter in that instance. But yeah, yeah, I mean, when you see that the Hunger Games underperforms, like, I don't know, like, it doesn't feel good. Like, a lot of these movies are just not doing well,
Hmm.
at least the way that you want them to do. And then, we'll see what 2024 brings. But um, if you can,
Yeah.
try and support movie theaters if you can.
Yeah, and I said, I joke about it, but if you live near a movie theater, consider getting one of those unlimited things. It truly is like with especially with like Regal, with the amount you get off on concessions, it basically pays for because it's like $22 a month, I think.
Yeah.
And it's if a movie is like $20 and you get 10% off concessions, basically if you go to the movies once a month, you're basically breaking even. So like something like that, I think the thing about that too is, and this is something that other people in my life have experience with it. People who are like me, single or don't have kids. Obviously, there's a lot of extenuating circumstances where it's
Hmm.
like you start to see movies you wouldn't normally see. And I think that also can be really good because I know I joke about it, but like a lot of fans of this stuff don't see a lot of other types of movies. Not that you
Yeah.
need to, but I think if you like entertainment, I think branching outside of your comfort zone is really good. And if you have like an unlimited thing, you can be like, hey, this movie seems a little bit interesting. I wouldn't want to spend $20 on it, but I can go see it for 50 cents. So I think that is like I would encourage people who live near a movie theater to consider getting, because I really find that like you can discover some stuff. And I think that there are
Mhm.
sophisticated movies out there that you might not think you would like, that when you see you'll be like, holy shit, I'm really vibing with this.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And yeah, I'm interested to see where this leads going forward, because there's a lot. Not is it's not just the blockbusters, it's the independent films. Everything that you want to see, comedies. Like, where has the comedy gone?
Huh.
That's the thing.
Can I
There
can,
are comedies, but where the people are not watching
can
them.
I say something? You know how much it pisses me off to see that No Hard Feelings is number one on Netflix? Because you mother, no, I'm not talking to you. You have a kid, but like,
I
you
know.
motherfuckers waited for it to be on Netflix. You could have seen it, and then when there's no more romantic comedies, no more comedies coming out for the next 5 years, you're like, why are there no comedies? Oh, it's because you'd rather wait till Net. Don't even get me started. I saw that movie in theaters. I saw the sneak preview. I gave that a cinema score, guys. What are you doing? I'm so pissed.
Shout
The
out to
movie's
that
good.
movie. It is good.
She
Yeah, that's a good
suplexed
movie.
someone naked.
Yeah, that's tremendous. Jennifer Lawrence, what a treasure!
Mhm.
What a treasure! All right, and the final thing I will ask you, Jay Christie, and arguably the most important thing on this Thanksgiving season. What are you most thankful for?
Um, I'm thankful for the community we built around the show. It's been really positive, not just because of like the show itself, but just I think a lot of positive people in my life have come into it. Most specifically, you. You are, I tell you this, one of the most positive people I've ever met. In a very, and you just make things better whenever we speak to you, and
Oh, stop
talking to
it!
you is a genuine joy.
Oh, stop!
And yeah, I think that
Be
like
kind. Mhm.
the people that I gotten to know and the people who enjoy the show, I'm very thankful for it. And yeah, I wouldn't trade an audience twice the size that was more negative. I wouldn't want.
I will just say there are not many things in my life that I enjoy as much as having these conversations with you every week. These are a joy, and the people that we have brought in have been a joy too. I think that adding friends of the show and certain guests, and the fact that we feel like when they come around here they have a good time, which I think is very important. It's a very positive time, and I think that's just because of the built-in. I mean, think about it now. We're about to be running on 6 years of this. um January, I think, of
Yeah.
2018 is when this
Yep.
started.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, I'll echo your sentiments. Thankful for you, thankful for everybody in our community. Just a wonderful group of people to talk
Hmm.
to,
Hmm.
a wonderful group of people to interact with, and we'll keep this going as long as we can.
Yeah.
And but I think the main thing is I'm thankful that we get to do this
Hmm.
because we love doing it. And I
Yeah.
think that's where it starts and that's where it ends.
Yeah. I'm
And
thankful that this is still really fun. Honestly,
yeah,
like the last two episodes of the Loki recaps were two of the most fun episodes we ever had, and it's almost 6 years in. Like
yeah,
it's
almost
still just
60,
as
yeah.
fun as ever.
Yeah, and I think it's fun to look back and think of like the ways that the show has evolved.
Hmm.
It has changed. We've brought certain people into the show that have helped foster it, helped change some of the things that maybe that some certain blind spots that we had earlier. I think having a healthy set of women to bring on the show in a lot of instances has helped us out a lot. That I'm thankful for just as much as anything else, because there's a lot of perspective that women add to the show and have added to the show that I really do feel has made us better as
Hmm.
not only podcasters but as people. So
Yeah.
like I think those things go without saying. And yeah, I think I can tell the people who listen to this show that when I try and find the time to be able to do this, like, trust me, I would love to do this more. I would. I really would. It would be so cool if that was the thing one day, and that's eventually what you work towards. But in the meantime, while I get to do this, I do treat this as a pleasure, and I
Hmm.
treat this as something that I don't take for granted. And that's
Absolutely.
why we're as passionate as we are about not only the subject but the enjoyment that we get talking about
Yes.
it. So I
Yes.
am thankful for everybody, including you, Jake. This was and again, another fun episode. This was a lot of fun to do. And Jake, where can we follow you, my friend?
You can follow me on Twitter at the J Christie. Listen to my other podcast, Love It First Psych, where me and Andre Barrera are talking about the USA Network original series Psych. For anyone wondering who are fans of this previous show, No Funkin' Strictly Monkin', yes, we will be back for one episode when the Monk movie comes out in December.
Oh, there's a Monk movie. Oh, that's right. I heard about
Yeah,
that.
straight to Peacock.
Straight to no, no, let me not say that.
Yeah, straight, yeah, straight to the cock.
Yes.
I
Straight
can't help
to
it. You don't want to say it, I'll say it.
Thank you, Jake. You can follow me on Twitter at AnthonyCanton_3. Follow the show on all platforms at MCUniversityPod. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Continue to bring those up. Like to creep up as we normally do. 5-star the show as always. As with the Patreon, mentioned that earlier. Tap in if you can. Appreciate everybody who has already tapped in on that. And so for Jake Christie, I am Anthony Canton III. This has been Marvel Cinematic University, and we will talk to you next time. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.